We have some incredible speakers lined up for you today. And what really inspires me and motivates me about these speakers is that, like you, they grew up in East London. Okay. And like many of you, they face some real barriers. Okay. But instead of letting those barriers beat them down, instead of letting those barriers determine their future success, they use those barriers as their super strength and are now hugely successful in different ways. And you're going to hear from those speakers. They're going to tell you their stories and also share some lessons, some life lessons with you about how they got where they got and what you can do now to help you for your future. Does that sound good? If that sounds good, let's make some noise. I think we can do better than that. Let's make some noise. All right. Excellent. Jess, can you just turn off my radio there? Thank you. Okay, so without further ado, if we invite from over here our first speaker, Terry Croft. And our second speaker, Samir Azizi. Okay, there you are, sir. Have a seat. Here's a mic for you. And a mic for you. Okay, lovely. All right, excellent. So, first of all, thank you so much for giving up your evening tonight to come and speak to our amazing young people. What do you think of our young people so far?
They're beautiful for him. Some of them are actually better looking than you. Most of them, to be fair.
Oh, no, that's them fighting words. Delete that from the video. And Samir?
From seeing this much people from last year and the year before that, I was actually one of you guys here, sitting down here 2 years ago. I've seen a huge amount of people, and I'm honestly so impressed. I'm seeing an amazing cohort that will literally rule the world in a few years' time.
Exactly. I mean, Samir is one of our alumni. 2 years ago, Samir was sat in the audience where you're sat, and you'll hear today about why Samir today is sat on stage and all the amazing things he's done since he's been on this program. And you're going to hear about those things. But before we talk about that, I'd just like to point out that Terry, our very kind speaker today, drove not one, not two, not three, but 4 hours. 4 hours to come to us tonight. Round of applause for that. 4 hours. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Terry, in a moment I'm going to ask about your journey, but I hope you don't mind, and I'm sure, I hope this is not crass, but I know the kids will really connect to it. When I say these are successful people, in the context of Terry, that success means lots of successful businesses, worth millions. Would you say that's fair to say?
That's fair, yeah.
So, when you're speaking, yeah, that's right. We've got a millionaire in our midst right here. Round of applause for that. So they clap for you and the millions, but they don't clap for me, Terry. I'm making a note. So Terry, sometimes when you're thinking about someone who's a millionaire and has made a success of things, you think, you know what? They probably had a pretty privileged life, and they probably had lots of opportunities and everything handed to them in a silver spoon. Was that your experience?
No. To cut a very long story short, I was born in Stratford, grew up in Stratford, East London, and my father got killed just before I was born. So my mother had problems. She was on the edge of some quite dangerous people, and she had habits and behavioural problems, and I was put under a protection order. I was taken into care. So my first experiences in my life were sleeping rough with my mother in warehouses in and around East London, being cold, having nowhere to live, having no food, having no clothes, and being taken into care, although it was, at the time, what I can remember about it was, not a great time in my life, but it probably saved me. And I then got fostered by my maternal grandmother, which was my mother's mum. And she took me to live in her house in Stratford in East London, which back in those days, the care system was under a lot of strain, a lot of stress, as much as it is nowadays, maybe more. So I was brought up on my nan's pension, in my nan's house, my nan's rickety old house, no bathroom, toilet down the end of the garden, no double glazing, no heating. You know, you literally woke up in the morning with ice inside your windows. You used to put on a coat, run downstairs. We didn't have a bath. We had a tin bath. It wasn't even a kitchen. It was called a scullery. You used to heat up water on the stove, and that's how you had a bath. That's how you sort of you looked after yourself. And then when it's really cold, you put your coat on, run down the garden, use the loo, and then run back quickly before you got frostbite.
Sorry, so you were using the garden as a loo, did you say?
No, we had an outside toilet, but the house hadn't been touched since the Second World War. It was bombed in the Second World War. And my grandfather and his brothers repaired it, so it was a pretty tough time in a tough house with no money. You know, I wore second-hand clothes until I was probably 10, 12. We had no food, but I never looked at what I didn't have for him. All I looked at was that I had a roof. I wasn't sleeping on cardboard. I didn't have rats running over my face. I actually had somewhere to sleep, which was relatively safe. And that's quite a good motif for life. It's about perception. It's about what's in your head. Don't ever think about what you haven't got, because you know a lot of people in this room have had disadvantages and will still be facing obstacles, but it's how you perceive that. It's whether you see that as a negative thing and you look at what you haven't got, or you look at what you have got. Because trust me, as bad as you have it, or you've had it, or you may have it, there are people in the world worse off than you. And there were always people in the world worse off than me. And that's how I looked at it. I was blessed in some ways. And that sort of become my superpower. I can tell you a bit more about my school if you would like, but I went to Colgrave School. Do any of you guys know Colgrave School? No. It's in Stratford. It may have been knocked down now. It was pretty ropey in those days, so it could be gone. But that was a nice school. I was 9. I was very seriously ill. Got taken in the hospital with something called peritonitis. So my nan had a phone call. Well, I didn't know at the time. Come to school quickly because he's not going to survive to the end of the week. So I was sitting in hospital at the time. All my school friends come up, my teachers come up, my nan come up to the hospital. I thought, this is great. You know, everyone's been really nice to me. Buy me grapes and sweets, and it was fantastic. And little did I know, I was in a pretty bad way. So when I learned that, you come in touch with your own mortality, and that again gives you another perspective. No matter what you're going through now, you know, you've got your health, you've got your arms and legs, you've got your intellect, you've got who you are. Don't ever lose that. So that changed me as well. And then I come out of that, survived that, and then went to Rokeby School. You must know Rokeby School in here.
Raise your hand if you know Rokeby School, if you've heard of Rokeby. Miss Ford, just go to the last slide for us. Okay, excellent, good.
Okay, I bet it's quite a nice school now. It wasn't a nice school when I went there. And went to Rokeby School, and at the time, we had a really bad bullying problem in my school. And when I went to school, and you grew up in care, you had free school dinners, somebody thought it was a great idea to give you a big yellow badge. So all the kids with free school dinners carried around this big yellow badge. And it just made you a target for bullies, because the school was full of poor kids. And a lot of these kids just wanted somebody to pick on, someone that was in a worse place than they were. And that was formative as well. I found that really tough. I had no parents to turn to. I was very lonely. I was a little kid at school. I was getting bullied a lot. But again, it gives you strength. It makes you resilient. I used that. I ended up taking up martial arts and fighting for Newham and being on the judo team and actually turning it around. And that was a really positive impact on my life. It taught me about discipline and respect, and I had to channel my anger and sadness if you want. And then suddenly I was at school. I was in a relatively stable environment. I wasn't being bullied anymore. So I realised that I had two objectives in life. I had a short-term objective, which was just to try and earn some money some way, to try to just get food and look after my nan. And the second objective, longer term, was to get my qualifications and get a good job. And you know, in this audience here, you only get one chance to get your qualifications. As difficult as it may be sometimes to concentrate, those qualifications stay with you your whole life. They define you to a certain extent. They define your career path. So I'll come back to that. But the first agenda item in my little 12-year-old brain was to actually get some money. So the only thing I could do at the time, me and three of my little mates, we got plastic buckets from somewhere and big sponges, and I must have walked around the whole of Stratford, Leytonstone, Leyton, Canning Town, washing cars for a year. Sorry.
Raise your hand if you're from one of those areas that Terry just mentioned. Good. Okay, here's a business idea. Go on, Terry.
It's not a business idea, trust me. Not now. But there weren't many cars, but we got our own little regular clients. So we had Mr. Smith on a Tuesday and Mr. Khan on a Wednesday. And this is what we did. And we got some money together. And then my friend Philip's mum had a car. And she had a membership to a wholesaler that used to supply goods to local supermarkets. So we took the money we made from our car washing business, and we threw that back into one Saturday. Me and four of my mates and Phil's mum went to the wholesalers, and we bought a whole load of I'm not sure you remember this, but pickled onion Monster Munch and curly whirlies and sherbet dib dabs. These are all antiques which you can read about in the history books when you get home. But we went and bought loads of these sweets, and we took them to school because my school didn't have a tuck shop. So under the supervision of the teacher, we started selling this stuff, and we made money. Yeah, we made quite decent money, and then that was probably my first entrepreneurial brain fire, I think, for him. I realised that if you're doing a job and you're selling a service or a product, and you're selling it for that, and you're making that much profit, and you're good at what you do, and you provide a good service, then why not just sell something bigger and make more profit? So the money we got from the tuck business, I was 14 and I bought a Ford Transit van, an old van, off of a friend of mine who had left, my friend's brother actually, who had left school. And I bought this van off of him, and I hired my friend's brother and his best mate to drive to Stoke-on-Trent, which is where they made all the pottery at the time. And we used to go up there, I was 14, we used to go up there and buy pottery and dinner services and all sorts of knives and forks, and we used to sell them down the Sunday markets. And we made quite decent money. Suddenly, I was 15, just going into finishing my O-levels. I stayed on sixth form in Rokeby and did my A-levels. And that money we earned from that, we then went into, a couple of my mates had left by this time, working in the motor industry, so we started buying cars. They used to get these cars that were bashed up, and we used to refix these cars and repaint them and make them roadworthy and sell them. Same principle. We're still selling something, but we're just selling something bigger. We're recycling our cash, and we're making a bigger profit. And that gave us a little bit, me and my nan, a little tiny bit of money, and we could eat a bit better. And my second phase of my plan was to get the job. And at the time, don't hate me for this, but I went into banking. But but banking back in those days was a good job.
I'm sure many of our young people want to go into finance. Raise your hand if you're interested in finance. So yeah, we might need to talk to them, Terry.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk later. But one of the main draws for me, I wanted to go to university, but I couldn't. A decision was taken away from me because my nan was quite ill by this time. She was really old, and the house was falling down pretty much. So a friend of mine had a good job at NatWest Bank, and in those days you used to get staff mortgages. You may remember this for him.
I'm too young, Terry, to remember such a thing. Too young.
Yeah, a long time ago. We used to get cheap mortgages. So I applied to NatWest Bank, and at the time, NatWest Bank, they used to choose 6, basically, A-level students over the UK or grads, and they'd take them on and accelerate them through the management process in the bank. And that's how my career started, and it went on from there. But for me, the important thing was that I got the mortgage. So I bought my first house at 21. All of that money from all of the car washes and all of the Pickle Onion Monster Munch and everything, it all went back into the house. So suddenly we had a bathroom and heating, and I didn't have to wear ski jackets indoors. It was a fantastic time. But all of my money, everything I had, got sunk into that house. But I increased the equity. I released funds from that. And I've always been interested in property because of that. It's a good store of wealth. So whatever you guys go on to do in your career, I'm sure you'll do well. You'll be successful. You earn a lot of money. What do you do with that money? How do you store it? So for me, one of the things I did was property, and banking and financial services. So I had a successful career in NatWest Bank. I was headhunted, went to Lloyds Bank, had a big department in Lloyds Bank. And then decided that I would go and do the same thing the bank was doing. So I took my team out of the bank, set up my own company in '97. It's still going. It's a PLC now. I'm very lucky. I've been supported by great people. I've met some great people along the way. A lot smarter than me. A lot, and that's what it's based on. It's based upon the people you meet, your relationships, and a bit of luck as well.
Wow, so from washing cars to running your own bank. Round of applause for that. Wow. Miss Board, can we turn these lights back on? Thank you. Terry, I want to come back to you in a minute, and I want you to tell us more about how you find the strength as a young boy, living with your nan in a house without heating, to have that perspective, because you said, I was so grateful for the things I did have, even though there was loads I didn't have. And, I shared my story with the young people. I grew up poor, living in a council estate with my family. I didn't have that positive outlook. All I could see was that people around me had all the things that I wanted, and I didn't. And that acted as a barrier to my own self-belief. And I wish that I had someone like you to tell me about, appreciate what you do have and use that to propel you forward, because otherwise it really held me back. So I want to come back to you and learn more about how you found that strength when your reality is really, really tough. But before we do that, Samir, thank you so much for joining us. You've had an incredible journey as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, so I would like to start off with where I've been raised up and born in Afghanistan. So over there for the past 7 years that I've been living there, I've seen first-hand experience and how people live in opposition to here. So what I would start off with is that when I was in Afghanistan myself, I saw so many people just like me, my age, or maybe a bit more older than me, that have been raised up in a society where they have limited rights and stuff. And every single day that goes by, every single hour, to be honest, 700 young children, younger than us, have passed away globally. And the reason to this is due to poverty, due to loss of families, due to stress, due to not being able to have the rights or the abilities that we do. So back from where I was from, it was very hard for me to, study there due to the terrorism and extremist acts that was there, and they've placed like a barrier towards us onto not doing something that we want to do. So my parents have decided to leave that nation. We've left that nation on our way towards here. I was a complete newborn person. I was in society where I felt heaven towards me when I see, like, you know, the greenery, the fresh air, the new cars, the new house that was made. I felt like I was in heaven myself. And then when I came here, I felt like I wasn't the right place. I wasn't the right person to be in heaven, due to the fact of people looking up at me and seeing and communicating in a different language, in a different way that I didn't really understand myself. I only knew Persian there. I only knew Farsi. And then when I went there, people saying, how are you and stuff like that, I communicated back in English, and I started getting a lot of threats towards me being quite extreme due to reciting or just saying my own words in my own language. It was quite hard for me for the past few years that I've managed to settle in, especially when you're going towards school, from being racist comments, extremist comments, so much stuff, that it's always demotivated me towards, you know, let's go back towards home. Let's go back towards home. In other words, go where you will at least fit in somewhere. Yes, you'll have a lot of barriers in front of you, however, you'll be safe there, in my own opinion. So as days went by, my parents have gone home, my parents have told me that there's no point of staying here and stuff like that. I was demotivated by my own family as well. But then days went by that my dad, he's been to work so many times constantly, and he's been through the same thing as well. So he decided, he's like, you know what, let's make a change. Let's make a change. Let's try to ignore these things that people take into you and do your favor and, like, you know, try to, like, socialize a bit more. Maybe if you speak Persian or Farsi, use that towards your own abilities and stuff. So I decided to make a small community group of Iranians and Afghans getting together, speaking with them, and slowly I managed to find out that I'm not the only one that speaks Persian here. I've managed to learn 10 different languages as it is now, from a variety of different groups and stuff, and it was very hard for me in my journey towards where I am now. Before, I didn't have any kind of, like, communication with others. I didn't really do anything, to be honest. I was in sixth form towards year 12 at Wolfminster Academy. Could I have, like, who came Wolfminster Academy here? Put your hands up. Yeah, so I've came to your school just 2 years or 3 years ago now. And when I went to the sixth form there, I was part of you guys. I was sitting right around here somewhere. And I was listening to the, you know, speeches and stuff that was given out. And majority, due to COVID, majority of the stuff was made virtual. So I didn't really have that ability to, you know, speak out. I didn't have the chance to raise my hand up. The maximum that we could have done was to comment down, or at least, you know, raise your hand up on the Zoom meeting thing. So what we did is I decided to, you know, let me try to raise my hand on one part. And the one part, I remember that I raised my hand up, and I think Fahim mentioned my name. And then I quickly raised my hand back down. I said, sorry, I can't speak. I was too shy to speak. I wasn't able to speak out loud. And then as days went by, after a couple of weeks' time, I decided, you know what, let me just try to raise my hand again. So I asked my question, and I got a perfect answer by an amazing speaker. It was Josh Tan Ikram, and he was an amazing speaker, and I think you guys might have it soon. But that was a time that I thought that, you know, I need to start speaking out a bit more. So I did small podcasts due to this Future Leaders program that I was in. I started to speak with many people around my school. I've managed to speak to people back home and make my own podcasts and stuff like that. So now I've become this year's UK's youngest speaker of the year of 2022.
Round of applause for that. UK Speaker of the Year. And, you know, as Samir says, from not having the confidence to say something on a virtual call to now being UK Speaker of the Year and sat on this stage sharing his lessons to empower you, I think that's an incredible journey. Round of applause for that journey.
Thank you.
I mean,
I appreciate it.
Samir, I'd love to hear more about what it was actually like growing up in Afghanistan as a young boy, because we're talking a lot about challenges and barriers, aren't we? So what was that like? Because we don't have that insight, but it might help us gain some perspective. So perhaps you could share that with us.
So growing up in Afghanistan was somewhat... Does it work? Sorry. Yeah. So growing up in Afghanistan, it wasn't something that I would say was amazing. I wouldn't say it was outstanding. I wouldn't say it's something that I believe that, you know, it's something huge. It was a very, very hard, difficult time. So I'll give you an example. For example, I used to have a long amounts of hair when I was in Afghanistan. I used to have long hair, and I used to go to school normally here and there. And then all of a sudden, on my way back to school, I've seen a group of people. They had similar length hair towards me as well. And so luckily, I was lucky myself that I wasn't with that group. They went towards and then the Taliban came and they started pressuring the person, saying that, why is your hair so long? And they apologized. They said that, sorry, we will go home and we'll cut it ourselves, etc. And then as it was in front of everyone on the streets, in front of their own parents and everything, they took a razor and they started shaving their heads with the razor. And me seeing this first person, I was at the age of 6, 7 years old. And I didn't really, feel comfortable in terms of keeping my long hair. And that time, luckily, I had a hat on as well. Due to it being winter and stuff, I was very lucky to say that, I wasn't part of them to get my head shaved as well. So I had my hat on and I went through the side roads and stuff and I managed to get myself back home. And I discussed this with my dad. And when I was discussing with my dad, he felt that, we need to get out from here ASAP. Because I know that if I carry on, maybe something else would happen to me. Maybe I will wear my tie probably in a small, different way or something. That what will happen that, they can start having a go at you. So the policy in terms of Afghanistan towards depicting Islam a bit wrong, it's a bit, quite strict and stuff, which thankfully now it's been overcome. But I'd still suggest that, when it's for people back home, as many of you guys could relate from being refugees or immigrants, you guys might know that we should be very grateful to where we are now. I believe that every step that I've taken until where I am now, I'm grateful for this amount of step that I took, because I know that if I'm here, I know that a person that is back home, they would be grateful to be in the situation that I am now.
Thank you, Samir. And you're going to talk a little bit later today, aren't you, about what the future looks like for you and how these amazing young people in this room can help you on that journey and the good work that you're doing. But before we come to that, I'd just like to go back to Terry. And Terry, I'm so glad you mentioned NatWest, because as it happens, we've arranged NatWest to come in on the 16th of February to do some workshop with you guys. And so who knows, maybe that moment with NatWest can be your moment like it was for Terry, which seems to have changed the direction of your life, Terry. But to go back to my question, where do you find the confidence and the belief when things are tough?
I think confidence and belief are quite often elided as the same topic, where they're actually different things. You meet some people in life who are really confident, but they don't actually believe in themselves. And some people believe in themselves and they haven't got the confidence. But confidence and belief affect everything you do. They affect the way you chase your dreams. They affect the objectives that you achieve in life. So I was thinking when I was sitting here about your question, and there's a quote by Shakespeare which says that nothing is good or bad, it is only your thinking that makes it so. And there's also a Japanese proverb that I was thinking of when I was sitting here that I come across when I started my martial arts. And I used to be able to say in Japanese, but I'm not going to flick that upon you. It translates as, you get knocked down 7 times, you stand up 8. And that's quite an important lesson in life. You're going to get knocked down a lot. And some of you guys in this room will have been knocked down more than some people. And some people will get knocked down even more. But providing you get up and you remain positive, it is how you process that. And I think one of the most common things that I face in my life, Fahim, when people get to know me, because I don't really talk about my past, it's something you don't talk about. And when people know me and know my background and being grown up in care, etc., people always say something along the lines of, well, you've done really well. And I know they don't, there's no malice in that. They mean that kindly, and I always take it kindly and thank them for the comment. But implied within that comment is that haven't I done well despite my disadvantages, despite the fact that I grew up in care, despite the fact that, my accent, I'm working class, I'm not white English, despite all of that I've done well. So what I don't tell them is that actually I think, and I genuinely believe this, I think it's my main advantage in life. My main advantage is my disadvantages. Because if you have overcome obstacles to get where you've got to, and everyone in this room has been, you've gained a position as a future leader for a reason. It doesn't happen by accident. You've got that. You deserve it. And the fact that you've got that, despite your disadvantages and despite the obstacles you've overcome, trust me, makes you stronger and it gives you a massive advantage. And I can genuinely sit here as an employer and look at you and say that you'll go on and you guys will have amazing careers, and you'll sit in front of bosses, and a lot of those bosses will think the way I do. And I mean no discourtesy by what I'm about to say now, but if I've got two candidates, and I've got a candidate over here that went to Eton and then went to Oxford, and his dad's a lord and he goes shooting at the weekends and he's a very lovely boy, and I haven't a problem with that at all, but I've got another person here who come with challenges, they've overcome obstacles, and they've achieved the same. Trust me, who's going to get the job? So it is how you perceive it. Don't ever see, if you ever face an obstacle, it's not a bad thing. It actually gives you an advantage. And later in life, you'll realise how many successful, really successful people you meet that come from exactly the same background as you. Probably more than I would say privileged people.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for those insightful words, Terry. You know, I was saying this to our West London program, wasn't it, last week? All the things that are tough now for you will be the things that will set you apart later in life. So for me, as you know, I grew up poor, gay, I'm dyslexic. Those are all the things that I really wanted to hide about myself when I was your age. I didn't want anyone to know that I was poor. I didn't want anyone to know that I was gay. I didn't want anyone to know that I was neurodivergent. But actually, fast forward 20 years, and those are the things that employers, those are the things that I now talk about at interview. And those are the things that I talk about when I go to, you know, when I'm talking about this program. Those are the things that people find really interesting about me. So I know it's hard to believe at your age, but we all have things, and only you know what your things are. But whatever your things are that you don't like sharing with people, or that you're embarrassed about, or that are uncomfortable, it's exactly those things that later in life become your superpower. So please know that, and please believe that, and hang on to that, because it will set you apart. And this idea of white, rich, male, straight being the most successful and powerful, those days are gone. Those days are gone. And it is if you're not all of those things, it is your time. It is your time to shine. But it won't happen unless you believe it. And that's what today's session's about. I wanted to bring living proof in front of you of people that have had it rough, tough, but actually are crazy successful in different ways. And if they can do it, you can do it. But if you don't believe it, it's not going to happen. So you need to believe it, because that will be the difference between success and failure. And if you can't believe it just yet, fake it. Fake it till you make it. Because one day you will believe it. All right? And we're on that journey with you till you do. And I think Samir is a really good example of that. You know, he couldn't put up his hand on a Zoom session with us. And now he's sat on stage. So if you believe it, you can do it as well. Going back to Samir. So Samir, tell us, what's next for you? What does the future look like?
So far, why I'm so far is that I'm a current law student at City University of London. I am a former professional boxer so far, with an undefeated rank of 8-0-0. I am also the CEO of Azizi's. It's both a public limited company as well as a charitable organization, with over 3,000 sales made, £3,000 worth of sales made in a matter of 3 months, and all of the money that so far has been invested into the business has been reinvested back into the charity. So I have specific roles so far here and there. Basically, you could say a full plate, which will lead towards, I believe that if you make multiple career routes for yourself, if not one of them fails, you have another backup route as well. So one thing that I would say is that if you believe in yourself, you will make that change. You will make that person that you want to be. I'm not saying this just for the sake of it, just to, just say it because I made it. I'm saying because I was that same person here as you guys as well. Matter of fact, I've actually gone through even more stuff. If I didn't, like Fahim said, put my hand up. If I did not speak out, I would be that same person. I would just keep my way completely blind and just walk towards that straight path that I assumed that would have been the best. So I've decided to, to make that change and become where I am now.
And tell us what your charity does, because I know you're doing a food drive and perhaps looking for volunteers to get involved with that.
Yes, yes.
So, everyone, as you know, at the end of this program, we are going to ask each of you to launch a social action project, okay? And you have to find a thing that you really care about. And that's for you to decide, okay? Whatever your jam is, whatever's really spoken to you on the program. And we want you to go and do something about that and drive some positive change. It might be a women's group. It might be supporting people who look like you or from similar backgrounds. It might be about raising awareness of a particular issue around the world, etc. So for Samir, that has been about a food drive and making sure that as we enter this cost of living crisis, that the most vulnerable in society have the most basic of things, which is food for them and their children. So how are you making that happen?
So I've decided to create Azizi's just a couple of months ago, and then I decided to also make a charity event as well. If I decide to make a focus group for a specific group of people, I wouldn't really reach out to the people that I want to reach out to. So I decided to make this appeal as, in other words, like a national appeal so far, that we'll be donating to whoever that comes nearby. For example, just today that I went past Woodbridge High School, I came from Central London myself, and I went past three people in need. I decided that, if I don't start from here, where am I going to start from? So I decided to, donate some money to them, donate some food and shelter, give them advice on what to do and stuff, comfort them in a way. I mean, I'm not losing anything out of myself. If I'm losing anything from my pocket, I know that this pocket is going to go for a good cause. So I decided to, start from somewhere. And I decided at Trafalgar Square at the 4th of December, I'm going to open a food donation event where I'm going to have, if you guys are interested to become volunteers as well, I'll be having volunteers to come and help out and donate to people in need, as well as giving them the ability. I've been in contact with Trafalgar as well, that one of the best volunteers out there will be able to actually give out their own speech in Trafalgar Square sometime towards January as well.
Wow, a round of applause for that. Goodness me. And we will circulate Samir's LinkedIn, if that's okay, to all of you guys. So if you'd like to get involved with that, please do reach out to Samir, and I'm sure he'd be really grateful for your support. Terry, just going back to you, I mean, it's not often that, I don't know about these kids, but certainly for me, to be in the presence of someone who is so successful and someone who's really earned every step of that journey and every inch of their success. So what lessons learned and successful habits would you share with our amazing group about how to be successful in life?
Good question. Something I try and do is I try and get better at something every single day. And by being open-hearted and realising that no matter how skillful you are, and some of the people in this room are going to be great at what you're doing. You're going to go on to be even greater. But no matter how good you are, every single person you meet will be better at something than you. And no matter how good you are, if you actually think that you don't need anybody else around you, you're wrong. Because to be successful in life, whether you're Samir and you've got an amazing charity, or whether you've got a business, whether it's just making a success of your family, you need people around you, and building relationships is key. See the best in people, try to learn something from everybody you meet, and just even if it's how you cycle to school or how, in my case, how I used to wash cars, just try and do everything, every day, something. Try and do something a bit better. That's something I've always tried to do.
And when we are facing obstacles, it's some additional thoughts on staying positive. And then in a moment, everyone, we're going to open up to Q&A for you guys. There'll be a mic coming around, so start thinking about questions. Yeah, really looking forward to your questions, so get thinking.
You just got to keep plugging away. I was thinking of something when we were chatting earlier. I was in Cornwall recently at a friend's birthday party, and I spent a few summers in Cornwall when I was a kid, for reasons we won't go into. But I spent quite a lot of time in Cornwall, and all my little friends in Cornwall had bikes. They all had, do you remember those racing bikes with the 10 gears, the little lightweight ones? So somebody gave me this big, fat Second World War steel bike. Honestly, this thing probably weighed twice of me. And we used to go, me and my mates used to go everywhere on this bike, all over Cornwall, all up and down the hills, down to the beaches. I was always the little kid at the back with a big red face, trying to keep up. And that went on for 2 years until one of my mates got another bike and gave me his racing bike. So I had his racing bike with 10 gears. And who was the first person at the top of the hill? Because I didn't give up. Because you're going to face those hills, you're going to face those obstacles. But it is literally about staying positive and thinking your way through it. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that said that if you want something, think that you are something, you're 50% of the way there. And that is so true. The power of positive thinking. If any of you do elite sport, you'll know the power of positive thinking and visualization. You got to believe in yourself. And as Fahim said, if you don't, fake it till you make it. Because you should be, we're proud of you. I know the organisation is proud of you. You need to be proud of yourselves and believe in yourselves as well.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, round of applause for that. I love that. Thank you. So proud. So proud. Traveling. I know some of you travel 90 minutes to get here each way. It's winter. It's cold. It's dark. So proud of you that you are investing in yourself. This is what this program is about investing in yourself. And you're putting yourself first. You're finding the time and the energy to come here and to be exposed to all these experiences that we're putting on for you. You should be really, really proud of yourself. This is that first step that could lead to great things. Like look at Samir. 2 years. What a change. I wonder what your change will look like. And I fake it every day. I do at least one thing in my day every day, either as my role as deputy head at the school or future leaders or speaking to somebody. Every day I do something where I fake it. Because actually I'm not confident about that thing. I don't think I can do it, but I force myself to do it. Most of the time it works out well. I come across pretty good. So everyone fakes it. It's almost like a life secret. But those people that realize, actually I can do it even if I don't believe it, eventually you'll believe it. If you fake it enough, you'll make it. Quote of the day, fake it till you make it. All right, thank you, Sarah. I'll take it. Yeah, thank you. Excellent. I haven't paid the alumni. They just know Mr. Khan loves the clapping. Okay, enough from us on stage. Let us hear from you. We've got about 10 minutes before we go to break. Questions. Hands up. Sarah, just behind there, please. Let's pass the mic to the people. Just your name, your school, and your question, please. Name, school, question. Speak loudly into the mic.
Hi, my name's Amina. I go to Isaac Newton Academy in Seven Kings. And my question is, how do you handle rejection?
Let's start with Samir and then Terry.
Yeah, so...
And if we do about 1 minute answers so we can get through lots of questions.
So, if you get rejected, it's not the end of the world. I've been rejected so many times in terms of finding work for myself. During 6 months, I'm trying to find somewhere to go and do work experience, just for the name of it. I couldn't find anywhere at all myself. I've tried to get in contact, I tried to do placements and stuff, and I couldn't really find anywhere. So what it was that once you get rejected, again, it's not like that's it. You got rejected from this part, you're not going to be able to make it to where you want to be. What you do, wherever you got rejected, try to be that person that the way of life is just a circle of life. That one time, that person that rejects you, don't think that you're going to be down there. Because when the time comes by, years will go by and slowly you're going to be back at the same spot that you might reject him. And that's all about you getting out there, speaking out for yourself, and knowing that rejection is not the end of the world. That's all.
Thank you, Terry.
Well, rejection is actually a part of life. If you think about this, just the numbers, look at the numbers. You're going to apply for lots of jobs. There will be loads of people applying for those jobs. The same as the limited places in future leaders. It is just a numerical fact that you will get rejected. When you understand that and you look at that positively as not a bad thing, is nothing personal. It honestly, Amina, it's just that someone on that day, it's not right for them, it's not right for you. Some of the best opportunities I've had in my life have come after rejection, and I've just persevered and kept at it.
Next question. Hands up. Adam, don't break my mic. You've got a loud voice. Gently. Thank you.
Terry, you're a millionaire, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
You trying to adopt me or what?
Yeah, let's talk later.
If anyone's getting adopted, Adam, it's me. Yeah, I'm sat next to Terry here. Okay, the next question. Yes, miss.
My name's Shauna. I go Valentine's High School.
Thank
How
you.
do you keep yourself motivated on a daily basis?
Good, excellent, Terry.
I think it becomes natural after a while. If you know that life is a choice, every day you have a choice how to feel about what you're faced with, whether that's rejection or whether that's something that's going on in your life, you can just be positive or negative about it. And I'm sure you've all heard the phrase glass half full or glass half empty. And it always reminds me of when I first set up my company. I had two guys who worked for me. I'm going to change their name. Let's call them Mark and Steve, just in case it ever gets back to them. And Steve was, one of the smartest blokes I'd ever met. His ability was off the charts, but he just wasn't confident. Mark, bless him, didn't have the best abilities, but he was really confident and he was really positive, and that carried him through. He became more successful simply because every day he was positive. And I asked him one day, he used to smile all the time. And he came into work one day with a big smile over his face, as always. And I said to him, Mark, I've got to ask you, how are you so happy? Why are you so happy? And his answer to me, I am. I just am. I choose to be. And you can choose to be positive, or you can choose to be negative. Trust me, negative is a bad emotion. You don't want that in your life. Try and be positive. It's hard, but try every day.